Tom Campbell here. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. The links are in the description below. Thank you and enjoy the video.
Good afternoon, Tom. We're here today to pick up some of the questions that we've missed on the Fireside chat. So let's get started with those questions. We don't want to leave anyone's questions out. Let's start today with Jan. And Jan asks, in the talk with Tim Murphy, you stated that rationality and logic have a very small space in the decision-making process. But how can it ever? Since all the decisions that have to be made about meaningful, important things in life never come with enough information to make rational and logical decisions. You sound kind of disappointed about that lack of rationality and logic, but at the same time, considering the lack of information, the rule set seems not to allow to live a logically consistent life. Is rationality and logic a necessary condition for lowering entropy?
Is it a necessary condition for lowering entropy? Well, that was sort of a surprise question at the end. Probably not. It's probably not a necessary condition. It's helpful. It's definitely a helpful condition such that one will probably grow up a little more quickly if they do have at least some ability to do logic and to have rational thinking. I think that, if you got rid of it altogether so that there was never any rational thinking, then that would probably be more difficult. But is it absolutely necessary? No, I don't think so. The whole point is to become love. And you could probably get there without any logical processing. In other words, it doesn't have to be there. But for many people, it would be hard to get there without logical processing. So it just depends on the individual. Many individuals in our culture are left brain dominant, which means they're linear thinking. They process information linearly, and they require on at least their best attempt at being rational and their best attempt at being logical in order to understand things. But particularly the small things, there's little things in life where rationality actually can work pretty well because you do have enough information. Like, where was the last time I drove the car? I can't find my car keys. Well, that should, you can use some rationality. Well, what did I do after, I used the car last time? Oh, I see. I was wearing a jacket. They could be in the coat pocket of my jacket. And then you go check that. So that's rationality helping you out, helping at least narrow down the possibilities. So we use rationality in life a lot. It's just as he said, in the big questions, the things that are really life changers, the things that have to do with growing up and seeing big pictures, which is, part of the things you have to do when you grow up. Those things are the things that almost never have enough data to even narrow the options, to narrow the places to look. Often those things just have so little data that rationality doesn't help you out much. So the short answer is no, it's not essential, but for many people, for most people, it's probably at least marginally helpful. And for many people, it's probably a necessary part of their search, because if they didn't use that part of their mind, they would have a harder time getting there. So I guess that's the answer to the question. But the idea of growing up is becoming love, and you don't actually get there by analysis. You don't get there from the intellect. but the intellect can certainly help guide you down the path that gets you there.
All right, Tom. Did you ever consider that these things are more difficult these days, using intuition, using left brain logic? Can you be very, very logical and left brain, very competent, say, in law or engineering or science, and still be, and still let that logic go in favor of a belief?
Well, of course you can. You can let anything go in favor of belief. Belief kind of trumps logic. You know, belief is, no pun intended there, but belief is a thing that requires no logic. You know, a belief is just a belief. You just believe it, and when you believe it, that's it. And the information that comes in contrary to that, you either deny or you make up a story of why it doesn't apply. You know, one or the other. So yes, you can be very left brain. You can be a scientist, you know, and a mathematician, and people who work in their left brain all the time, doctors, lawyers, Indian chiefs, and they can have beliefs, and their rational part will just skip over the facts in order to keep those beliefs. And the longer they've held that belief, the more likely they are to deny information that's contrary to it. If that is a belief they've taken on through their culture, you know, it's not something that they learned intellectually, but something is just sort of everybody believes it, so you believe it too. Then it's one of those incontestable facts that just is, and that's held then very deeply. So one would almost certainly tend to deny and dismiss all the evidence to the contrary. So sure, that can happen. It's also not incompatible to be both extremely left-brained, logical, rational, and extremely right-brained, intuitive, and big picture. You know, you can be extreme in both of those. They're not incompatible. It doesn't mean if you're one, you can't be the other. And that's really I think the best place to be is where you are very competent at both types of data processing. You can process data intellectually and do that rationally and logically, and you can process data, you know, intuitively. So I think that's the best, to be very right brain and very left brain, to be very logical and very intuitive, both at the same time. And that way, the two of them can work together, because what one of them is good at, the other one isn't. You see, they really work well hand in hand. And what one of them is, when one of them is terrible at something, the other one is really good at that thing. So that is why both together kind of makes a whole mind. Now you're firing on all cylinders when you can have both your intuition and your intellect working hand in hand. Neither one really wants to dominate the other. Both are processing tools.
Thank you. The next question comes from Michael. My question is about sadness and love. I sense there is a connection between fully feeling sadness and my ability to love unconditionally. When I try to avoid sad thoughts about my dog dying someday, for example, I get this sense that I am loving him less. When I fully allow the future thought of him passing and allow all that grief to come up, I feel unbelievable amounts of love for him. Is there a connection between our willingness to feel sadness and grief and our experience of love from an MBT perspective? And the reverse of that, can we shut off emotion without impacting all of them?
Yeah, if you shut off emotion, you're basically shutting off a natural way that you express things. You express who you are, what you're feeling. The problem with shutting off emotion is that it's hard to be authentic without your emotion. emotion is a part of you. So if you shut off your emotion, then you're really not too authentic. You're not just expressing who you are and what you are and how you are, which is what authentic does. So I wouldn't recommend shutting off emotion. That seems like a not very good idea. That would be like, why cut off one leg or, one hand or something. Not a good idea. So you should embrace your emotions and your feelings, and you can learn from them, because when those emotions are negative, you've got fear. You have ego and beliefs. Otherwise, you wouldn't have those negative feelings. So then there is something to work on. So they will point a direct finger at what your problems are and what you need to fix. So in that way, emotion is a very handy thing to have, because it'll always point out your problems to you. Now, as far as the sadness and love can be sad. For instance, when you love, well, he was talking about his dog. When you love your dog like he did and the dog dies, then that's sad. You miss the dog. But at the same time, thoughts of the dog aren't thoughts of self-pity, like, oh no, woe is me, my dog died. That's just self-pity. It's thoughts of the dog are love. You just remember how great it was having that dog around, and it's all very positive. So as long as it stays positive, then there's not a problem. When it goes negative, then there is a problem. So sadness can go either way. You can have sadness that then turns negative and sadness that stays positive. Love and sadness are connected in that when you, let's say, have two people in your life and you love them both, maybe it's your parents, or maybe it's your children, or maybe it's your spouse and one of the children, or somebody, maybe it's your Aunt Susie and somebody else in the family, and you love these people, but these people are dysfunctional and they fight and they create a lot of their own problems. They're negative, they complain, they argue, and you can see that they're just hurting each other, hurting themselves and hurting each other. And you'd like for them to not do that, to grow up enough to stop that behavior, but you can't make that happen, because you can only change yourself. You can't change other people. So then you just accept them as they are. They are on their path, doing the best they can with what they have. They have to learn their own lessons, and they have to learn them in their own way. But because you love all the people involved, it's just sad that people have to be that way. And eventually, that little scenario, that's kind of inside the family, becomes true about the whole world. You see people in the world doing dysfunctional things. You see people in the world suffering, not always because of their own choices, sometimes because of other people's choices. And it all looks so needless. It looks so unnecessary. It looks so sad. And because you kind of love life and love people in general, you can see all that terribleness. And sad is a fair emotion to have there. Gee, that's sad. But that still can be a problem if it goes negative. If you say, oh, that's sad, and it's wrong, and people shouldn't be that way, and now you're angry and you're upset, well, now it's gone negative on you, and now it's not good. Then you become part of the problem when you let something like that upset you, cause you stress, make you unhappy. So sadness, yes, but that sadness has to be in a positive framework, in that you go, oh, those people, they're so dysfunctional. That's sad that they're that way, and they just don't see that life would be so much better if they'd be nice, if they'd be kind, if they would care about each other. They would all be so much happier. Oh, well, it's just the way they are. They have to grow up in their own time and in their own way, and accept that and go on. You don't dwell on it. You don't, wallow in it. It's sad, but you let it stay positive and not negative. Now, that's where a lot of people get trapped when they, look at the world, see all the dysfunction in the world, those politicians, those those, whatever they are, public servants, whether it's police or, the Department of Motor Vehicles or any other kind of group of institutional people that annoy you, we get angry at them. We get upset and we fuss and we fume and we, let them give us stress. And all of that is our choice to be stressed, our choice to be angry. And that's a poor choice, always. So if people see the ugly world we live in and it makes them angry, then they become part of the problem. That anger does not help fix things. That anger just throws more gasoline on that fire. Angry people make more people angry. Caring, loving people make it easier for people to be caring and loving. So if you want to add to the angry side, then you get angry. But if you don't want to add to the angry side, you stay positive. The angry side. Now, the angry side's on both sides. Usually in these things, you have polarized viewpoints, and each one is angry with the other, and both of them are part of the problem. So that's kind of the thing about love and sadness. Yes, sadness is a part of love, but it shouldn't be a negative thing. It needs to be in a positive context.
All right, thank you, Tom. The next question is from Arton, and he would like your viewpoint, your MBT viewpoint, on your understanding on the nature of animals, and he would like you to address the issue of animal suffering. Is there a relationship between human suffering and animal suffering? On our planet, we kill and induce torture on over 55 billion beings, animals, each year. How does this impact the human experience? Would our world be a better place if humanity grew up to not kill and induce suffering on animals? I don't want to drag Tom into the vegan versus non-vegan argument. If it is all possible to address, it would make for interesting learning. The animals are all too often voiceless. I confess I am vegetarian, vegan. I do eat cheese on occasion, and if I'm invited to a home that isn't catering for my needs, I will eat fish or compromise in some form so as not to cause issues. This may be an interesting issue to address to help humans evolve towards a more loving state of being. Why do animals choose to be incarnated here, knowing their fate? Is there any purpose in it for them? Is human evolution linked to the way we think of and treat animals and all life?
Well, pretty much the answer to all those questions, there was 6 or 7 of them in there, is yes, 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 and yes. Yes, there is a connection. Humans, because humans are not very highly evolved, because humans have a fairly low quality of consciousness, that's one of the reasons that lets them slaughter animals. In their mind, they have no sense of that animal being a conscious animal who has a life, who has things to do, other critters that it cares for and it cares for it. It's a living conscious thing with free will, and to overrun that free will and to raise these animals for meat, to slaughter them, is only a thing that a very low quality of consciousness society could do. And so yes, the human evolution and the way we treat animals are all tied up together. As we evolve, as we grow up and become kinder and gentler to each other, we'll also become kinder and gentler to animals. I mean, we'll be kinder and gentler to everything, not only the animals, but we'll start caring more just for the planet. We'll care more about the plants and other things. We'll tend to be better caretakers, better, I don't know what to say, advocates for the planet in all of its ways. So we are not all that grown up, so we tend to be self-centered. Self-centeredness is what most people are when they're not grown up. They're self-centered. Matter of fact, the degree to which one's self-centered is pretty good measure of the degree to which somebody is grown up. And it's the degree to which somebody matures. So if you're self-centered, then it's all about me. What do I want? What do I need? Oh, I want some meat to eat because it tastes good. And I want to eat meat every day, every meal. So I need a lot of animals to die to feed my interest in meat. And I don't think about the animals and their lives and their free will because I'm self-centered. I just don't care about things other than myself. You know, if it's good for me, then I want to do it. If it's not good for me, then I don't want to do it. And that's the way most people go through life. It's about them. It's about their needs, their wants, their desires. You know, if they desire to, to cut down a tree to make some wood to build something, then they don't necessarily think about the environment and the tree. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, that didn't matter as long as people didn't have the tools to do mass cutting and mass destruction. Because as much as people could cut down trees with an axe, the trees could grow back. And the people didn't, live everywhere. So it was okay. And it wasn't really a big problem because, being destructive within nature is part of the way nature is. Animals in their the things they do to survive often are destructive. They dig holes, they kill things, they, eat things. So that's just kind of the way it is. But nature accepts all that, and nature grows on all that. And nature has created a lot of balances, between that. So the number of deer you have and the number of things that eat deer kind of balance each other out. When there's too many deer, then there's more of the wolves and coyotes that eat the deer. And when there's, too many wolves, then there's something that kills the wolves and so on. Usually people, I guess, kill the wolves, but I'm not sure what else might hunt a wolf. But anyhow, you get balances of things. And that's good, that everything is balanced and things needs get met. But humans have the ability to do better than just take what they need and not think about the consequences, because we have enough awareness. Our consciousness has the capacity to see bigger pictures, to look ahead and say, well, we cut all the trees down on the planet, then that's going to be a problem for us because they create like 25% of the oxygen we breathe. So that wouldn't be too smart. Or if we pollute the water, we won't have anything to drink. Or if we do drink polluted water, we won't, we'll be unhealthy. So humans have the ability to look ahead into the future, to see their responsibility, not just in now, in the present moment, but how do things affect other things over time? Most animals don't have that capacity to see their effect on the environment, 20 years from now. That's a little outside the capacity of most animals' consciousness. Now, not necessarily all. There are some animals that have bigger brains than we do, and even their frontal cortex is more, has more wrinkles and convolutions in it than ours does, and that indicates, brightness and ability to think and be creative and solve problems. I'm talking about like killer whales and dolphins and other large vertebrates and mammals, I think mostly, that have large brains. So they have the capacity to perhaps look far ahead and see the results of things. But as far as up on land and as far as the critters that have large decision spaces, we humans are the top of that pile. We have the largest decision space of any critter. In other words, we can change things for ourselves and for the rest of the whole world more than anybody else can change the world. We have that capacity to do that more than any other critter. So in any case, that means that we also have the responsibility to take care of that world more than any other critter or anyone else in the environment. And to do that, we have to not be so self-centered. As long as we're self-centered, we'll just use the world like it's a resource for us to plunder anytime we need it or anytime we want it. And mankind has generally thought that way, but there weren't so many of them, and their tools weren't so great that it mattered a whole lot. The environment just kept on, and man was kind of in his place. But now there's a lot of us, and our tools are such that we can level a whole forest, in a couple of months without much trouble. So the tools have enabled us to do things now that we couldn't do before. So now we have to think ahead and say, what are the repercussions of this? What are the consequences? What are the unintended consequences 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 50 years from now? And we have the capacity for that. We just yet don't have the will for that. So as we grow up, we will have the will for that. We'll care about everything that's conscious. We will care about life. We will find life very precious. And I suspect that one day, almost everybody will be vegan. And, maybe the meat eaters will, grow their meats in Petri dishes. It'll be that sort of thing. But in any case, one day we'll see that. We'll live in a kinder, gentler, more aware place. And the reason I say that very confidently, that we will get there, is that because that is where evolution is taking us. The evolution of consciousness is going to keep chugging away at becoming love. Now, even if we do something really foolish, make some bad choices and bomb or poison ourselves back to the Stone Age, well, we'll just start over at the Stone Age and we'll just start chugging from there. So eventually we'll get there. But whether that is by the end of the century or, 3 or 4 millennia from now, that's hard to tell. We've been on this planet for about 200 millennia, about 200,000 years. We Homo sapiens have been walking around about that long. And we haven't made a whole lot of progress yet, but progress is slow. But the more progress you make, the faster you can make more progress. And right now we're getting in that part of the curve where the progress can get faster and faster. So we do live in very interesting times. We live in times where big changes can happen quickly. Before, they couldn't happen quickly. It just wasn't possible. We didn't have the infrastructure. We didn't have the things that were necessary to make big changes in humanity. Humanity was too separated, too scattered, too much, not connected in any way. But that's changing with time. And so, yes, one day we'll get there. That is where we're headed. That is on the path to love, is also caring for all sentient beings, all consciousness, and even for the things that aren't conscious, caring for the soil so that we don't bankrupt the soil, caring for the plants. We should be the stewards because we have the capacity to damage and to destroy and the responsibility to take care of and be the caretaker. Their power, the power you have goes both ways. Power gives you responsibility. So we have all this power, and so far we've been best at destroying, but we haven't been very grown up. But then we've been children, and children don't leave a real big footprint. But now with our technology, we can, and we have to grow up into that responsibility. So that's where we're going. Yes, one day we'll, most of us will be vegan, and that probably will be one of the next big moral issues that human struggles with, is the eating of meat. But that may not come for 20, 30 years yet, or maybe for a century. But one day we'll get there. You're just a little ahead of your time. That's good. That means you're a part of the solution and you'll help other people see bigger pictures. Tom Campbell here. I and MBT Events hope you liked this video. We now have well over 1,000 hours of free video on this user-friendly, ad-free YouTube channel. Though these videos are free to our viewers, they represent many thousands of hours in production and editing, and many thousands of dollars invested in video and audio equipment, along with the required computers and software to store and process the raw video into finished products. So far, all of this content has been funded directly out of our own pockets. Be assured, we will always continue to do what we can. It's our life, our purpose, a labor of love that we will continue to pursue as best we can. However, those pockets are not as deep as they used to be. Thus, we are now seeking to augment our resources with support from our viewers. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. The links are in the description below. Thank you.